Heroism. That is a term that is thrown about very freely and weakly, promiscuously today. Everyone's a hero. We have comic book action heroes. We have sports heroes, movie star heroes. But there is such a thing as real heroes. And heroism, of course, comes in many different ways. There are people who face heroically all kinds of challenges. But we're very honored today. I'm personally very grateful for our guest today, a longtime friend. Longtime readers of the New American will be familiar with him. His name is Joe Occhipinti, and he is a true hero. He is was the most highly decorated federal law enforcement agent in American history. In the Customs Department, in the INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, he was heroically facing dangerous challenges every day, life-threatening danger. He had many attempts on his life, many threats on his life and his family, because he was taking down the drug lords, the drug cartels, the human traffickers, all kinds of criminal elements, organized crime. And he was decorated for this many times, over 78 times, I believe. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, where he was received commendations from the departments and 3 Attorney General awards. So in this day that we're in now, where we see all these attacks on the police and the misuse of the Justice Department and the FBI, Joe Occhipinti was right in the middle of that over 30 years ago. His new book, Framed, I Never Had a Chance, is out now, and it is a gripping story. Joe was prosecuted by the Justice Department after he was framed with collusion of officials by the drug cartels, and was actually sent to prison for doing his job, for being incorruptible, and for being tenacious as a hero. So, Joe, I really want to thank you for coming on the program today. And we're going to put up some of the articles that appeared in the New American magazine over the years, particularly back in the 90s when you were being persecuted and prosecuted. But want to really thank you for coming on. And in case I might forget, I also want to give my personal congratulations to you and your wife, Angela. I understand this is your 50th anniversary week.
That is correct, yes.
So, Joe, welcome to the show. And I'm sure people that haven't heard of your story are wondering, well, why was this highly decorated, conscientious officer prosecuted and persecuted? So just give us a thumbnail sketch of your story.
Well, basically, it was always my intent as a special agent for immigration to try to focus my efforts on the crime syndicates, the international drug cartels, versus simply trying to arrest an illegal alien who came. It was best way to use your resources. And fortunately, during my career in the book, I profiled many of the major cases that hit front page news where we did successfully prosecute organized crime, terrorists, as well as crime foreign drug lords. My demise started when I was the chief of the human trafficking unit in New York, when I got notified that a New York City police officer was murdered in 1988 by Dominican drug lords. What I learned was the NYPD had arrested the wrong suspect, and they came to immigration and asked for my assistance to be on a task force. And as a result, working hand in hand with one of the best detectives in New York, we solved the murder of the officer. And what I identified was the drug cartel implicated in its murder, and that they were buying grocery stores throughout New York to facilitate their drug trafficking and money laundering activities. So I did what my job required me to do in concert with permission from higher immigration officials. I set up Project Bodega. And within 7-8 months, it was a huge success. We were making numerous arrests, criminal prosecutions. We were getting convictions. We were making multiple drug seizures and all kinds of crimes of organized crime. But what I never realized that this drug cartel was politically connected. The drug cartel had a political group called the Federation, which has been documented to be the political action group for the Dominican drug cartel in New York. And they lobbied with the mayor of New York to have me prosecuted. We know from affidavit
That at that time was Mayor Dinkins, correct?
that is correct. We know from affidavits from multiple parties that have been entered into the congressional record that rather than killing me, they decided to set me up on fabricated civil rights charges. Basically, what they alleged was that these merchants that posed themselves to the grand jury as being law-abiding never really gave me permission to search. Now, that brings about many concerns. One, every day law enforcement officers are accused of an illegal search or seizure. Generally, the courts decide administratively that if it was an illegal search, they simply throw the case out or exclude the evidence. In my case, I became the first law enforcement officer ever in American history to be prosecuted criminally for civil rights charges without any acts of police brutality, racial bias, or corruption. And that had a chilling effect on law enforcement. And as a result of numerous media sources, including Mike McAlery, a Pulitzer Prize winner of the New York Post, and I have to say the New American Magazine, among others, independent investigation showed that in fact I was set up. But it was a dilemma for the Justice Department because they were trying to sell and the American public, they were winning on the war on drugs. And how is that possible if they show that a federal agent was set up in order to terminate viable investigations against their drug operation? In any case, I was railroaded into a conviction and actually sent to a maximum security jail, put in the general prison population with some of the same Dominican drug lords that I was investigating. Clearly, it was a death sentence.
Just let me butt in for just a second, because that is so incredible. The agreement at the end of the court, my recollection, was that you were going to be sent to a minimal security prison where you would not be in danger. But Judge Motley, Constance Motley, changed that. What happened there?
What happened was a week before I was supposed to self-surrender to a camp versus a penitentiary, I went on a national TV show called Politically Incorrect. And the host was the comedian, it skips my mind, but I'll get it. And on the show with my wife and my daughter in the audience, I told the public how I was a federal agent going after a drug cartel. And because of my efforts, I was convicted for civil rights and I would be going to a jail. When the prosecutor and the judge learned about my public appearance on the Jackie Mason show, when I got home from the studios, there was US Marshals waiting that said, "You pissed the judge off. She wants you taken into immediate custody." And to show my retribution, they put me in El Reno, Oklahoma, a maximum security jail. And later on,
with the general population, including
general
people that
population.
you may have arrested.
When I got into the intake, the television was going on with the court, with the correctional officers, and there was my picture, and they recognized me, the Dominicans. They said, "That's you. You're the federal agent who's been investigating us." Well, I mean, I survived, but one thing that helped was the support of the national law enforcement organizations, because they realized the impact that my landmark prosecution had on their officers, their operations. And as a result, drug interdiction stopped. Drug Enforcement Administration stopped drug interdiction. The New York City Police dropped drug interdiction because they were concerned that their officers conducting good faith searches and seizures can go to jail. But what happened all along was they lobbied President, the outpour of support outraged not only law enforcement, but the American public. I got support from legitimate civil rights organizations, from fraternal associations, from the media. Every media article showed that I was innocent. For example, they interviewed on a national TV show the jury foreman on my trial, who was in fact worked for the New York Times, very liberal against law enforcement. And he said that the only reason why the jury convicted me, they were misled by the court to say that an immigration officer could not search for drugs, which is not the law. And when that went to the Department of Justice, they said it was not relevant, the interpretation of the jury. But more
Joe, this is so incredible, and most people are unaware of this. And even those that read about it in the New American 30 years ago have probably forgotten about this. But this was really prima facie case of collusion and corruption, because the judge, to do this, had to know that she was sending you on a death sentence to put you in that prison with the general, something that's never done. When law enforcement is put in prison, you don't put them in that kind of a situation. But the judge, and I believe the prosecutor and some of the other people involved, were also mobbed up, so to speak, with Mayor Dinkins and the Dominican Federation, correct?
Well, one of the contributors, to I believe, that convinced the Southern District of New York to prosecute me is, while I'm working Project Bodega, we had a reliable informant who made many cases, who told me that she worked in a law firm as a paralegal in the in-house counsel to the same Dominican drug cartel I was investigating. So with the authorization of immigration and my superiors, I created Project Esquire. And as part of the allegations was that certain federal prosecutors were going and attending sex and drug parties being funded by the cartel. And in exchange, there was favorable court decisions. Now, when I called the Southern District of New York and I spoke to the chief of the criminal division, he ordered me not to talk to anyone. He wanted to personally interview this informant, and he did. And when she went to that interview, she had actual docket numbers, names, and all the stuff. And after 2 weeks, I called him. I said, "Are we going forward with Project Esquire?" Because I was going to do an undercover investigation, send my informant in with a tape recorder and actually implicate the attorneys involved in the drug trafficking trade. And he told me, "No, we cannot do it." And I said, "That's why?" They said, "Well, she was an attorney. She worked in the law office, and therefore it's client-attorney privilege." I said, "Not if the attorneys are trafficking in drugs and corruption. You can't do that." But I realized later the reason. I was pushing, and a year prior in the Southern District of New York, the FBI had arrested a federal prosecutor for stealing cocaine out of the seizure room. So here comes Joe Occhipinti trying to push a corruption case that would adversely affected the reputation in the Southern District of New York. So when Mayor asked for a federal civil rights investigation, they said, sure, we'll do it. We'll put it before the grand jury. And the prosecutor was the godson to the judge, who was a personal political associate to the mayor. I never had a chance. I could have had F.P. Bailey representing me. It wouldn't have made a difference. But the bottom line was I survived because of the love of my family. I did what I had to do. I have no regrets. And the public outrage and support convinced, as you know, President George H. Bush, who granted me executive clemency. And in addition, in December of 2020, President Trump not only granted me a full and unconditional pardon, but a personal apology for my injustice.
So even after you received the clemency from George Bush Sr., he did not give you a full pardon, which still then made it almost impossible for you to work. You didn't have your pension, your 20 years plus pension, all of that. And
no, I was lucky that I did retire on disability retirement, because what happened, I worked 5 years undercover infiltrating a Dominican drug cartel for Rudy Giuliani, who was the US attorney. It led to one of the largest seizures. So a year before I had the incident, I had applied for disability because I had gastrointestinal and PTSD, among other medical issues. And as a result, I was approved. So fortunately enough, I never lost the pension. You're correct. I was still a convicted felon. And more recently, even though I got the full and unconditional presidential pardon, the Biden administration and the Justice Department has said, well, we don't consider that an expungement of your conviction. And they denied me asking for my retired badge and credentials.
so, folks, his new autobiographical book, his memoirs, Framed, I Never Stood a Chance, is out now. And where can they can get the book on online?
Amazon. They can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or if they want an autographed copy, they can call the National Police Defense Foundation at 888-SAFE-COP, 888-SAFE-COP, and we'll make arrangements to send them an autographed copy. But you know, there was a happy ending to the book. The executive clemency, the presidential pardon, and also the fact that after I had the executive clemency, I went on to establish the National Police Defense Foundation, which today is one of the largest police organizations in the country, with over 200,000 members and supporters nationwide and in 12 foreign countries. So I took my injustice and I have effectively helped other good law enforcement officers who have been similarly prosecuted, and we've gotten them exonerated.
Well, your story, your life is an amazing and inspiring story, and it's so incredible. I can tell you're a man of faith. I know that you are. That this kind of treatment, I mean, your whole life, basically, adult life after your service has been one of persecution, smear, and personal defamation, and it hasn't made you a bitter man. That's an amazing thing. You are still very positive and doing wonderful things. And we can put up your telephone number and your website for your National Police Defense
Foundation.
and you're doing amazing things there. So we thank you and commend you, and we're going to have you back, because there are many other issues of law enforcement, the rule of law, and our open borders. You were in INS, so all of this has to be very troubling to you and to your many members who are involved in trying to enforce our law and stop the chaos and corruption that is destroying our society.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Joe, and we look forward to having you back. God bless.